And we are live. Welcome to Elevate Today podcast. I am here with my cousin. I just realized I did not know your name. Anthony, what's your last name?
Teschera.
Teschera.
Yes.
Jennifer, does she have that on her?
She does now. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, this is my cousin. My cousin's husband. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Anthony Teschera, and like you said, I'm married to Jennifer, your cousin. Just living a really lovely life right now. I think one thing that I really wanted to touch point on is like it's been a crazy, last few years of my life, and we'll kind of allude to it later in the sense of like how moving so fast, having kids at a quick pace, and like evolving, changing careers, and doing a bunch of different things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just been a blessed of a journey, and I've truly enjoyed it. So I'm just happy to be here and just kind of talk about those things.
Yeah, that's super needed right now because, like I was saying before, we have so many different kinds of discussions from people involved in the hookup culture, people being single these days, and how hard it is to find meaningful relationships, meaningful connections. And then beyond that, the thought of bringing a child into this world. It seems like something everyone wants, but something that everyone's scared to do with the conditions of the world, let alone have children, but have someone to raise a child with.
Yeah.
And it's cool because you work your job, you have your side jobs, like you're working multiple jobs, you have kids, you're married, and you're also navigating the realization that you do need to know how to manage your own personal time.
Yeah, it's I'll tell you I think I married my wife Jennifer, that was 2016 I believe, or 17, sorry, and things happened so quick. It's like we got married, we went on the honeymoon, baby number 1 came, 16 months later baby number 2 came, and then almost 2 years later baby number 3 came. Jeez. And so it was a crazy transition in life that really took me on a mental journey that really, forced me to figure out what I really wanted and needed to do to be successful, not only for myself, but be creative in the way that I can make a successful life for my family and my kids is really what it's come down to. So it's been a cool ride, but I think it's one of those things that a lot of people, they see the kids and they see, the wife life and the travel and, everything's roses and flowers and it's, there's a lot of internal challenges, right, that you face. And I think that it's important to know that it's okay to have those things, right? And like, as I was alluding to earlier, really my life probably in the last year and a half has changed tremendously because I really tried to emphasize how important it was to find myself again and spend time with myself. And that's not to say that I didn't want to spend time with my family. It's just everything happens so quickly that you really lose touch, and even with my wife, you really take for granted time. Yeah. Time is, we're on borrowed time, right? The clock can strike 12 whenever it's ready to. And it really just makes you appreciate it because for us, we cherish the small times. We get the kids down to sleep. And if that's us hanging out for 20, 30 minutes, before bed and talking about just life, like I truly value that. And like, I think it's really important to note that whatever relationship that you are in, whether that's, with your wife, whether that's with your partner, your kids, your family, and yourself, it's important to value the time in all of those aspects, because if you lose the touch of time with any of them, you start to kind of lead down this weird path to where you like kind of don't know what to do. And previous to a year and a half ago, that's where I kind of felt like I stood. I was like, what is happening? Like everything was happening so quickly. I wasn't happy at my job at the time, so things kind of started to paint a picture when I started to really, really focus on myself, waking up in the morning and meditating. That 15, 20 minutes changed me mentally, emotionally, phically, like that. I mean, I could see things change within a week. And so that was
new to you?
Yeah. So I never, I played sports in high school, played baseball in junior college, and no one really was like focused on or had a point of emphasis on the mental kind of addressing for males. It was like, you're going to get in, you're going to hit the weights, you're going to show no emotion, you're going to play the games, you're going to, you know, that's where that sat. Mm-hmm. So to really like invest my own time in my mental stability and my inner peace, like really helped jump me lengths, because I was then able to really focus on what quiet time and me time meant. And a lot of people, they say, you know, well, I don't have the time. And it's like, if it's really important to you, you make the time. You know, you get to bed early, you wake up early, you invest the time in those things, whether that's getting, you know, any sort of physical things going on, whether that's workouts. You know, I see you doing these crazy cold plunges and all that stuff, and I commend you for that. But it's like, whatever it is that's that piece for you, you have to find and you have to take serious. Because a lot of people, they don't know when to really change or take steps in figuring that process out. Sometimes people are still living an old life.
Yeah.
And so they really kind of lose touch of like how to invest in themselves. And, you know, I can tell you that 15, 20 minutes, I mean, people think I'm crazy that I wake up at 5 or 5:30. You know, my alarm goes off at 4:45. So I try to get up and get out, whether that's workout, meditate, or just have time to read. Like all of those times, whichever way you choose to spend it, really will invest in your long-term health. And I think that that's something that as people get older, they get in relationships, they have kids, people lose touch of. And so I think it's truly important, because if you lose that, you're going to find yourself, like I said, sometimes just not sure what's going on. And it's like life goes by so fast.
Yeah.
So it's been good for me. It really, really, really has. So, and my wife's been a huge supporter of it. You know, she's obviously done the yogas and things like that really help her detach. And, she's been kind of like my inspiration, like watching her come postpartum, you know, get back into her fitness, focus on her health, and really like emphasize the importance of what that means to her, you know, it's inspiring, right? Because, you know, I'm trying to get healthier and things like that, but to just see her consistency and her level of grit that she takes to make that a priority while still being a mom, while still being a wife, while still, you know, working her 9 to 5, it's crazy, but it's awesome.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find the moments to not just do the life, but like be present in the moment that you're in, because otherwise you're going to just keep going fast and you'll just skip out on things. I feel like maybe the children for you is something that made you realize you had to like have this face to face with time itself and be like, oh my gosh, if I don't compartmentalize and give and take and learn how to invest time properly, then it's just going to go.
Well, it's crazy. And, you know, you'll see as you know, become an elder adult and, you know, strive to have kids, if that's, you know, what you choose and want to do. When you have kids, time flies by so fast. And it's like, you know, the other day I was watching videos of when my oldest son, when he was born, right? And it's like you're watching him and, you know, Apple has these awesome ideas in ways that you can just play videos of just that specific person.
Yeah.
And like, I started like crying, like it was crazy. And now he turns 5 in 2 weeks.
That's crazy.
And to see how fast that's gone, even my 3-year-old son, he's, you know, I still, when I close my eyes, picture this chunky curly headed baby. And now he's, you know, this kid that's doing his ABCs and he's counting and he's, you know, very observant and things like that. And my daughter too, you know, she's a little over a year. And I remember when she was born, it was a crazy time. It's when COVID was like at its all-time high. And I remember specifically because during that time, my wife, she gave birth, and I came home to visit the boys thinking, oh, I'll check in for a little bit and then I'm going to go back to the hospital. Well, they were sick. Oh. And then COVID was crazy. So it was like, do they have COVID? Like, what's going to happen? So I didn't get to see my daughter for like the first 2 weeks of her life. Right. So it's like, when I talk about the importance of time, right? It's like, yeah. And it's truly important to really like emphasize like living in that moment, but not only living in it, appreciating the moment, whether it's positive or negative. Like you'll find ways to learn and grow. You know, I have this quote that's in my desk, and it says, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And I think that like applying that to life is really important in the emphasis of time. Because when you look at time and you look at everything that's in front of you, your family, right? Coming from large families, and the importance of everyone's got so much going on that when you just get that moment, it's really important to harness and enjoy that time, because you don't know when that time is going to tick, and you don't know when the alarm is going to go off and say, you know, there's no more time. So it's something that I've really learned to value, and I've noticed since having kids when time started to really move. Because before that, I mean, I would feel like I was still in my 20s, and I'm like, no, you're not. You're 30 now, you know? And so it's just crazy how that happens, but it truly does make you appreciate that for sure. Yeah.
Like one of my best friends has 2 boys, and I'll go on trips. So if I don't see her while I'm here, and then I go on a trip and I don't go like maybe a week or 2 weeks without seeing the boys, I can see them just grow. Like they can either get taller or they talk more, and it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And they're not my kids, but to lose out on those moments, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I miss you getting this much taller?
Yeah.
It's a weird feeling to have. And the fact that they're not even my children, I can't imagine what it's going to be like to have like my own kids.
It goes by quick. I'll tell you that for
Yeah.
sure. And, but it's a beautiful thing, right? It's like the evolution of life, the growth of life, like seeing kids at a young age, and having the ability to be such an influence on them, right? Like they copy your aneurysms.
Yeah.
They want to be you, you know, you're their idol, right? And that was one thing that actually like I found to be really important is, you know, you want to be the hero in your house, right? Like everyone always talks about like, you know, I want to do these things outside of my home, and I want to be, you know, rich and famous and all that stuff. And that's great. I want to be the hero in my house, right? Like I want my kids to talk about me and remember me when, you know, when they're older, and think about, you know, who was their hero, who was their idol. And it's like, you know, even I'm sure you can attest to that with your parents. And it's, I just like look at those things and know how important that value is to me. So I really try and do what I can to ensure that I am that, you know, and that the whole thing of being a parent too is like, you kind of have to worry about counterbalance with your partner and figuring out how to co-parent, at home. And it's wild, but it's a beautiful thing. Cause the family life, you know, there's times where I'm like, oh, I'm so happy we got to take a breath. We got to go to dinner. You know, we got to go on a date without the kids.
Yeah.
But I remember, you know, we went to Las Vegas not that long ago, and we were just like, we want to be home with the kids, right? Because so it's crazy. And when you say that about just a few days or a week, you truly do see that growth.
Yeah.
And it's wild. So that's why it's like, you know, I'll talk about it now. I'll probably talk about it in 10, 15, 20 more minutes, is like time. Time is the keeper of all. And it's like, it's crazy that it may take one particular thing happening for you to really realize the importance and value of time. So
yeah, I think people seem like death is a bad thing to think about and talk about.
Yeah.
But death teaches me so much. And with the most recent funeral for Dominic,
yeah,
his death really played a big toll on me because it was so unexpected, but I feel like he lived so complete.
Yeah.
Like he had so many fun memories, so many fun stories, yet he stayed on the journey of accomplishing his goals, his dreams. Like he was pretty much got to the point of being a doctor. Yeah. Yet he still managed to travel around the world, you know, have the girl, have all these friends and impactful relationships.
Yeah.
And like after that, I'm like, it doesn't matter when I go. What matters is how I handle every single day. Like the people that did know me, that did have my time, were they impacted? Did we have fun? But like on the other side of it, did I continue to like work my way to accomplish what I know I'm capable to accomplish? Like the back and forth thing. Yeah. And if like people usually lean one or the other. Yeah. And parenting, especially as a father, it forces you to do both. Like you can't, you don't have a choice. No. You don't have a choice unless you know, something has to give where maybe you miss a house payment or something. Like that is not an option. No. Or the kids don't know you. They don't get to have that outside time. Yeah. Like as soon as you're a dad, it's no more slacking off. You got to be on top of your shit. Otherwise, like it's the only way.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned that about the house payment thing and things like that. I remember I was working a job, and I think it was before we had Marcus, my firstborn. But I got let go from a job, and to me it was a bunch of BS. But essentially it was like you go into a mode where it's like when we talk about like fight or flight, you do that with real life. And so it was like, well, what am I going to do now? And it's like you get on the line, you scramble, you make ways to get back to where you need to be to ensure that your family is, in a good space. And you're right with that. It's like I can't allow myself to fail. I had a conversation today with my wife and the kids, and just the kids heard in passing, but I said, I need to be here for you. And it's like when I said that, I really wanted to emphasize here. Like I wanted to be here because we were there together in a space where the kids were enjoying themselves. My wife was playing with the kids on the floor, and it's like it was really important to be present at that time and be there, because the moment that you start to take that for granted, you're going to lose touch with the value of that relationship. So it's like, I think that as a parent, any parent, most, if not all, you'll do anything for your kids, if that's picking up a second job, if that's working overnight, like whatever that may be, or it may be something to where you need to invest time. Right. So my last job that I worked, I lost out on a lot of family time. I was working late nights. I was working weekends. There was a lot of crazy stuff going on, and I had an opportunity to take another position just recently. And now I have the flexibility of life again. I take my son to school. I can pick him up from school. I can be that. I want to just, when he grows up, that's something that I want him to remember is, my dad was present, but behind the scenes, still busting my ass to get things done. Right. So it's not a question of like whether you can get stuff done for your family with the time that you have. It's how you take advantage of the time. Right. So it's like getting up early, getting active, getting on the emails. If you're, pushing out a product, if you're marketing your information out, if you're getting, taking the time to invest in how you're going to grow your business, like if you want time, you can make time. And it's just important that I think that, especially for myself, with our side business, with the dog food business, it's really important to understand that if you're passionate about something, you're going to drive towards it. Yeah. Right. And if you really want to make, that time for it, you will. And we've hit times where it's like, man, like we get stagnant and we kind of lose some ground. But sometimes we just have to kind of kick each other in the ass to get back in gear. And we really start to think about like why we do it. And I look at the long-term goal, which is provide a business for our kids and our kids' kids and our cousins and our family, just like with your dad, you know what I mean? Like being able to provide a generational wealth out is what's important to us. And that's really what kind of continues to push us and continues to make the time for ourselves to really input the time into those businesses. Cause it's crazy. It's hard. Living in 2023 is hard.
It's different. I mean? Yeah,
it is. And I mean, look at where we live in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. It's like people are moving out, going to the Midwest, like getting out of here because it's hard to manage. So it's like, it almost feels as if you don't have if you don't have a second hustle, like how are you going to survive here?
You won't survive.
Yeah.
That's what I'm starting to see. Without a second hustle, either that one thing is your whole life or it's going to be hard. But I like how you acknowledge that, because I heard that in another podcast, but a great plan, especially as a man and a father, is to set something up for your children to take over. It's like the greatest safety insurance, because even if they don't, then it's still yours and you can maneuver how to navigate that business. Yeah. But in this day and age, so many jobs are being taken. You don't want to be under somewhere where you can get fired. So to have something that's like protected, hey, this has been protected in all areas from the family. Yeah. So your kids will always have something. Yeah. And they're going to want to try different things. Yeah. They're not going to only want to do this business. They're going to want to try things, and they're going to fail, and they're going to realize, oh, okay, like to have more of like a say and a contribution into a business, it's like the best thing in the world. And I'm learning to appreciate so many things. Like, my parents didn't verbalize what they were doing, but now that I see it, I'm like, you guys thought this out from a long time ago.
And it's crazy too, because, you know, fortunately for my family, you know, my parents have had the ability to invest in real estate and take advantage of having something for my sister and I to fall on when we become adults. So it's like, how do I pay that forward to my kids just in respect of what my parents did? And you're the real realization of this entire thing is like, unless you place yourself in a position to be generationally wealthy at some point in your tree, you know, whether that's 2 generations or 3 generations out, they're going to fall flat on their face. And so by the risk that your parents took, my parents took, we have the ability to be creative, right? And we have the ability to fail. And I think failure is a beautiful thing, because it's something that I feel like failure always gets talked down on, because I feel like it's like, you know, people are so scarce of failing and, well, what am I going to do? Oh shit. I screwed up. How am I going to get back from this? But it's like, if you're a really powerful person internally, you're really going to find your way to learn from that loss and grow, right? And to where maybe your next endeavor, you're learning from the mistakes that you made to continue going on. And I found myself that way when I was trying to find a career at a young age. It was like, just find a job so you can pay your bills, right? So you can enjoy your life. And it's like, looking back on it, like me losing that job, getting let go from that job, really allowed for me to pivot and transition to find what I wanted to do long term. And thankfully with the side business too, is like, you know, my brother-in-law's come up with an amazing concept and an idea, and has the dude puts in 180% to it. Like, that's his thing. Like, he's so passionate about it, and you know, he loves what he does, that it's hard not to feed off that passion. Right. So it's like, when we start to not have as high revenue weeks or months, like, I just try to look back at that to really ground myself again, to try and reestablish and find my way. Because like I said, failure is a beautiful thing. And I think sometimes that people are too scared of failure, that it kind of closes off their ability to grow. Because it's like, if you don't go your extra length, you're going to probably fail in life at least once. Everyone should fail. But if you're scared of that, you're never going to have the ability to learn on how to move forward. So it's crazy. It's just crazy. Failure is a thing that it took a lot of time to realize. I mean, I knew I lost that job years ago, but looking back on it now, it's now that I realize, oh, that's what helped me really like change my mindset and my thought and my process. So it's been nice.
So I want you to give me advice as someone in my early 20s. In 2023, because you're going to have to do this in 10 years for your own boys, with the fact that you've worked your 9 to 5, side hustles, mindfulness of mental health and sanity, trying to make things work financially. What kind of advice would you give to me, considering I'm still learning about numbers, building a foundation, but it's at the end of the day, it's what I learned to do. What kind of advice would you give me?
Are you talking from a business aspect or a personal aspect?
Money survival.
Money survival. Well, in the realm of money survival, I think it's really important that you, whatever you're doing to create that wealth is something that you're truly passionate about. Because if you're doing something that is just allowing for you to have money come in, right? Eventually you're probably going to lose interest, because in the back of your mind, you're going to think about what was it passionate to you that really would make you want to push forward. And I think that, you know, with the dog food business, I've always had a passion for dogs, right? And for me, it was, I never really thought about the nutrition value for dogs versus like a human, right? And it's like, when you think about a dog that was important to you, right, that may have passed away, right, like, that shit sucks, right? And then when you really think about it over time, you're like, wow, like, I kind of contributed to this by making poor decisions, you know, for health, right? Just as we would for ourselves. But I think it was a lack of knowledge. So now that we have this dog food business, it really drives like my passion to really understand what it takes to allow for our business itself to thrive. And really what it is when you look at people in this day and age, 2023, people care more about their dogs than they care about their kids. Right? So it's like, you find that, right? And it's true, right? True. Your dogs don't talk back to you.
Yeah.
You know, your dogs don't complain. You know, they're not asking you for $20 to go eat, you know, McDonald's or whatever. Like, but getting back to, you know, your question, find the passion, right? And I think really what's going to be important for you is have a plan. Like, think out your plan. You know, what is your long-term goal, right? With your business or whatever that is, whether it's, you know, doing a small business, or whether that's investing in a real estate, or, you know, anything along that end. Have a plan. Because it's like in your head, if you don't understand, again, the value of your time, you're not going to really be able to put a concept to what you're really trying to get to.
Yeah.
So it's like when I look at, you know, the side business, when I look at what I want to do for my kids and starting other businesses, right? Like, my goal is to be done, finished, complete with work by the time, you know, like 50, 51, right? And for a lot of people, it's like, oh, well, I can't retire till I'm 65, 66. And it's like, how much quality lifetime do you have, right? And I actually was, a friend was talking to me the other day, and they talk about, I think they call it QLY or something like that. It's like quality years of life. And they talk about when you look at your life and you look at things you can do in your life, when you get to that age of, say, a 70, where health may start to be declining, or you may be running into different issues, whether it's being non-mobile and things like that.
Yeah.
Right? You think about that quality life, years of life left, that window is very, very small if you're trying to be on the retirement clock, right? Like, to me, it's not fair to say, oh, well, here's your retirement check at 65. And I think the average lifespan right now is like 72 or like 76. It's like 7 years of sustainability to spend all of this time that you worked for. That ain't right. You know what I mean? So it's like finding what that means to you. That's how you build your timeline. If you say, hey, when I'm 40, I want to be able to still live my life to 70. Well, there's your age gap of quality years of life that you want to have. So, you know, come up with what that plan means. And that's really going to drive how hard you push yourself until then. And it's okay to, you know, have those sleepless nights if you're grinding and getting after it. Yes, it's good. Like you said, take a trip every once in a while, clear your mind, find that healthy reset. But in that same sense of things, draw out what that timeline looks like. Because if you don't know where you're going, before you know it, 60 is going to be here and you're going to be like, oh shit, I can't do all the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I took away from my grandfather before he passed away. I think this was in 2000, I think like 2002 or something like that. And he told me, you know, travel while you're young, enjoy life while you're young, or while you are young. And I really kind of try to draw that into my timeline now, because when my kids go away to college, I don't want to be working. I want to see my kids in school.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're playing sports and I can go watch them. The goal is to have all my kids go off to college together, the same college, and we can just pick up and move and go live by them. Obviously not too close, but you know, but be around them and be able to enjoy those times.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't get to, and then they retire and what's left, you know? So I think that for you is to just draw your plan out, and really you need to establish what are those quality years of life that you need. Then you can kind of reverse engineer your timeline. It's crazy to think about.
Do you still think that you'll want your kids to go to college with how college is now?
I think that they deserve the right to experience it. However, if my son came to me one day and said, Dad, I don't really want to go to college, it's not for me, I'd be okay with that. But what I would not be okay with is if he didn't have a plan.
Yes.
Right? So it's like, when we really look at how COVID was, you know, everybody was at home. People were losing their jobs. well, who were the people that were still out working? Everybody that's working out in the trades, you know, whether that's an electrician or a plumber or, you know, whatever that is, right? Like that type of work don't stop. So if my kids, you know, came to me and said that they didn't want to do that in favor of doing this, or if it's in favor of taking a journey onto something that they're really passionate about, then absolutely, I'd be behind them 100%. And hopefully, you know, if the plan goes well, that if it's, you know, they need financial backing to help with that, then I can help them because I got my help. You know what I mean? My parents helped me out in life. And I think like I said earlier, when it came to, you know, the housing and all that stuff, like I owe it to my parents to then pay back my kids. So to me, college is always great to experience. However, your mind may not be in tune with that. Yeah. You may not need that college experience. You know, you may just be ready to hit the ground running and just get to business. And then when you're, you know, 35, 40 and your business is running itself and you're sitting on a beach in, you know, San Diego enjoying your life, like, would college really be worth value at that point? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So
I think like the social aspect of it is really healthy and necessary for like, if you're kind of didn't go out much in high school and then that 4 years of college, you can learn how to connect with strangers, how to be clean because you're forced to live with another person, how to like feed yourself, how to pay your bills, stuff like that. Like those are the valuable skills that a lot of people will lack in their young adult years, or if they never went to college, there's just basic things. It's like those little things that do need to be thought out. Like I knew I didn't want to go to college, and if I couldn't go to a private school next to a beach, I knew that I would go crazy going to a public college because I feel like I'd want to party all the time if it was an option.
Yeah, and it's easy to give into that. Yeah. Right? And also too, it's what is everybody else doing? And if, you know, for example, you're talking about those that lack social skills, right? And if they do insert themselves into that college environment, 9 times out of 10, that's the quickest way that they get to their social life is through, I mean, you can meet people on campus and build relationships and stuff like that, but like people want to party and do all that kinds of crazy stuff. And don't get me wrong, I did, you know, have fun when I was in college, but looking back on it, I don't think it was necessary. However, mentally it did help me advance where I was in my growth and as far as like my timeline. So
it's kind of weird because I think more people are learning that college isn't that much of a necessity it was. Yeah. And so now that people are going to be like, yeah, you can do whatever you want after high school. It's like, that's a lot for someone at 17 to be like, okay, well, if I don't have 4 years of college, then just pick a career and go for it. Yeah. Like now, I think everyone should be banking on the idea of having a fat savings doing anything. Yeah. Just learn how to have a side hustle, have a fat savings, and live your life and fail and travel and get broke and make money again. Yeah. Because I think that's like starting to be the best way to learn. Yeah. College is so not as popular as it used to be.
I also too think it's like you find yourself less stressed. You know, I see a lot of people, you know, that travel and that financially may not be making the most sense, but mentally their clarity is so much different than someone that's high strung, that's worried about, oh, I got to graduate. Oh, I have this test. I have this, that. Like I can get and understand that. And I think that dream that I was taught my generation is like, you go to college, you get an education. It's not necessarily needed anymore, right? Like there's so many other skills that you can learn, soft and hard skills, all in these rectangle squares, you know, whether that's learning how to do a side hustle, right? Making your money work for you. Like you don't need to go to college for that. And I've noticed that in time, a lot of businesses and companies have kind of dropped that prerequisite from when you apply. That's usually like the norm. 4-year college degree, that's like disappearing.
Because now they're like, well, what have you done? Yeah. It's like, I went to college. Like I was supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's okay for those that feel that that's not their path. It's okay, like you said, to fail. And don't be so hard on yourself, you know, in general, and that's for anybody, if you're still trying to find your path. Like I feel like people get such this internal pressure, whether it's from themselves or their families or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just because you haven't found your it. What's your why? You know? So it's a crazy thing to think about, but I think in this day and age, there's so many things that you can fall back on. You know, whether that's learning how to code on the internet, or whether that's learning how to be a reseller of products, or you know, white labeling things or private labeling things. Like there's so many different things you can do that if you really, really needed to, you can find a hustle and you can still live your life and enjoy your life, which is where I'm trying to, like, for me, I eventually want to get to, but I'm hoping that that's the life I can pass on to my kids, is finding what that is for them. And if that is college and learning some things along the way, great. But if not, that's okay too.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Good options there.
Yeah.
So when I was doing my little Instagram poll about things that people want to hear about, it was always like, well, hookup culture, how to overcome mental health, stuff like that. But the one I'm surprised that I didn't get, that I'm going to ask you, is how do you maintain a strong marriage? It was like, how do you overcome divorce?
Yeah. How
do you, you know, tell me about hookup culture. I'm like, what about how to maintain a healthy relationship? Because that's what we all want. We don't know how to do it. And like, I think a big part of it is not believing that we have what it takes to do it. So you have it. You have it, and the kids and the business.
Yeah. It's, that's a really, really deep question, because I think there's so many different levels of marriage. You know, you have folks that get married young, right? You get folks that get married and then have kids right away. You have folks that get married and don't have kids at all, right? Like there's so many different levels to that. And I think what's been really helpful and successful in my relationship with my wife is the time that we spend with each other, and like really like valuing the importance of that. And I'm truly like astonished and in like sometimes in disbelief of like how she does what she does. And like for me, it just allows for me to look at her in a different light, you know. And I think that you really need to make sure that when you're in a relationship that you're not only investing your mental time but your physical time. Like it's really important. And I think that,
what's the difference? So
for me, mental time, it's like where you're taking the time to text each other, or you're checking in with each other via phone call or whatever that is. I think physical time is important, right? Like going on dates when you're married. Like, man, that's changed, you know, our life drastically in these last few years. Like, you know, having our boys back to back 16 months apart, we didn't spend a lot of time together. You know what I mean? And so that was rough. And so that happening, and my daughter being born, and my, you know, middle son not doing well with sleeping by himself, I slept in their room on the floor for 6 months.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so it was like not the best of times, right? And so that's where, you know, it really was a challenge to make sure that we started taking our time. And I think if there's one thing that I can always say will help is continue to date. Like losing touch with dating will really, you probably get bored. You know what I'm saying? Because then you're just going through the motions. It's like waking up, feed the kids, take the kids to school, pick the kids up from school, feed them, shower them, bed. It's like, you know, that can get hard for people, and it gets stagnant. And when people get stagnant, they get complacent. And so I think, you know, finding the time in dating has really helped us like tremendously.
Yeah.
You know, whether that's just us going to dinner with ourselves or with friends. I remember we went to San Francisco just to go to dinner. We were supposed to go to a concert. Somehow the tickets didn't get secured for the concert, and we came right back. Most would be like pissed off, but like for us, it was like, man, that was fun. Like we got to go out and have a date. And yeah, that was funny as shit. Like we screwed up, but at least we had the time. You know what I mean? So I think dating, I was reading in a book somewhere that, you know, you should date once a month. You should go on a trip, you know, with your family twice a year, and you should go on a trip away from your kids at least once a year. And like keeping that consistency of ensuring that you're still investing your time into each other, despite whatever your kids have going on, will allow for you to continue to elevate and grow. And I think that that's hard, because with times, like, your kids start playing sports, they start having, whether it's, band, or they have this or that, like, time gets crazy. But it's like, taking that time to find each other is helpful. And then even just spending the time at night together, whatever that is. We try to get our kids down about 8:00. So it's like from 8 to 9, that's our time. Whether that's me watching Real Housewives with her just to be present and laugh, and whatever that is. But it's important. And just having those small talks. And I think another thing that leads to a super healthy relationship is being comfortable being uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is, it's okay to argue. It's okay to have differences, but it's how you come back from those differences and how you communicate with each other that really sets you apart, in the sense that her and I cannot agree on something. And she's a huge proponent of, I don't want to talk right now. And I'm the inverse. I want to talk about it right now, and I want to solve this problem.
Yeah.
So it's hard, and there's a clash there. But I think over time we've kind of absorbed that with each other and understanding, to where we can now feel comfortable of like, all right, now we want to talk about it. Let's talk this through and be okay with it, and then move forward. A lot of times, people will get in arguments or whatever, and it's just like, yeah, you're right. Fine, I'm done. And it's like, is the problem really solved at that point?
Yeah.
Or is it just a Band-Aid? Because as soon as that Band-Aid comes off and that cut opens back up, you're right back in the same spot. So that to me is crucial.
You think that you guys are an example of opposites attracting?
I think so. I think that I'm a lot more social in that aspect of like, I have, a large group of friends, and wanting to be out, and wanting to, just do things actively. And my wife is so different from that. She wants to be at home. She wants to be with her family, and she wants, to stay close, and has a very, very close circle, which I respect tremendously. And I think that that's a real thing, because then you're able to kind of balance each other out. Right. It's like, sometimes she'll get put in social situations with my friends and stuff like that, and she just adapts. And maybe she didn't know that she had that in her before. And the same with the inverse of that. There were so many times where I was like, fuck, I don't want to be stuck here. I want to get out. I want to go do something. But now I find myself at home just enjoying the time, like with my family and kids, and I'm okay with that now. So that opposites attracting is I think that gets utilized a lot, because then you find a balance within each other. If you're the same type of person, things could be hard, because you're probably going to clash a lot.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting, but I think it's been, I've learned a lot from her, and hope it's been the same.
She's pretty intense, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She's intense. I think for me, I stay a little bit more reserved in that aspect. But I will say that, she don't hold back. My wife is not someone that if she's got something to say, like, it's coming, and it's coming hard, and it's coming down your road. You know what I mean? And I think, I respect that, because like for me, I've always been like a people pleaser, and like, how can I, still stay reserved and help those around me, whether that's my friends or whatever, my family. Like if something's needed, like I feel like I'm always like the first one to like jump. But yeah, she's got a little grit to her, and I think that that's another piece, obviously, that drove me to her. I can talk about when I first saw her. It was at the gym. It was at 24 Hour Fitness. I'll never forget. And we had a mutual friend that introduced me to her. And so at that time, it was just talking and passing. Oh, hey, this is my friend. And her, she's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm not talking, like, I don't got the time for this. Like, I'm trying to get my workout in, you know what I mean? And then I remember one day she was doing, I think it was box jumps or something like that. And I tried to like make a comment to like help her with her form. Boy, she was not having it, and like got the dirtiest look from her like ever. And so it was funny, because I was like trying to like, how do I talk to this girl? And that's when I knew. I was like, I need to get to her somehow. And so, funny, oddly enough, it was a social situation downtown San Jose. We crossed paths at a nightclub. got her number, and it was like the rest was history at that point. So it's just kind of funny how that worked out. And she's she is a little explosive, and she's she's in your face type of person, when she needs to be, but also in the same sense, she's very nurturing and caring. And I think, especially when it comes to her family, she'll do anything for her family, her brothers, her parents, aunts, uncles, whatever, cousins, whatever that is. And she makes that very apparent. And so it's one of those things that I truly respect, because she will drop whatever she has to do to ensure that her family comes first. So she's got it's crazy elements to her life, but I think that has allowed me to balance the way that I react and the way that I kind of manipulate our relationship, in the sense that I have to adjust to her levels, and she's learned to adjust to my levels, and that takes time. It takes a lot of time. So it's, whether people have been dating for years, married for years, there's still kind of like that power struggle, but it's how you guys come back from it, and collaborate.
What are the telltale signs where it's worth it to stick with a person so different from you?
I think for me, seeing how invested that my wife is with her family is something that I knew that I wanted, from the sense that I knew that if I had kids with her, or if I had kids, that's her priority, her number one priority. And for me, that's, I guess that's the real differential in where I was in my life at that time, is like, do I want to date somebody, or do I want to find my lifetime partner? And at that point, I think we were like 26, 27. And I was not wanting to date anymore. I really wanted to find what that was. And so it's like, when I got put in, a family setting with her, and you know how it is, right? It's like you come in, it's like all these people, it's like, whoa, like, what is this?
It's different with the Savlans.
Yeah. But it's a beautiful thing, because it's such a family oriented and passionate place. And so it's like, once I saw that, I was like, this is what I wanted. And, here we are today. I think we've been married for 5 years, coming on 6. So it's been cool. It's been great. Yeah.
Was it crazy getting to know Uncle Benny?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's, I think that there's one thing that I will say, and he's probably going to hate that I'm even talking about this, is that Jennifer's trait of doing literally anything for her family, that's where she gets that from. Not to say that she doesn't get that from her mom, but my father-in-law is very passionate about his family. And I think that that's truly important. And I think it's funny, because I always found, I feel like I have an amazing relationship with my father-in-law. And I think that took a lot of time. It's like, that's his only daughter.
Yeah.
And so that's crazy, right? To think about that. Now having my own daughter, she's only one. I understand to an extent, and I can't even imagine what that's like when your daughter gets older. But he threw me to the fire a little bit. There was times where he kind of, would see how I would react to things. And I think what was, we both loved the Raiders, which made life, kind of easy. And that was always our come to moment. But I think over time, I think that we've established a great relationship. And I think that that's mostly in part because I know how much he cares about his family and how that's trickled down to Jennifer.
Yeah.
So that's made that an easy transition, I would say. So.
Different cultures don't understand that. Like,
no.
We're just going to see how you respond to this. Like, yeah. I've seen different people bring guys around or whatever and like just get tested. And they're like, why would they say that? Why would they do that? I'm like, just to see if you can handle it. If you're a baby and you get uncomfortable and don't like it and leave, well, then you didn't love her enough. Yeah. And I've seen people fail, and I've seen people do so great with these tests and answer the questions, but that's just kind of, I guess, the island way, just to be like,
it's different.
Can you take it?
Yeah, and I think coming from a large family too is a big piece of that, because it's
Italian.
I'm Portuguese. Yeah, and so my family is a little different in the sense that we come from a large family, just like your guys' family, right? But it's very like welcoming and like they want these other people to come in, versus like the island side is so different. And it's not to say that they're not welcoming. It's just they're trying to see if you're really, you know, there for what you're there for. You know what I'm saying? So when you say that, it's crazy to me, but in the same sense, I feel the same values from a family perspective, right? Like I come from a large family, huge, loving, happy family that, you know, everyone has their riffraffs inside of that and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the coin, I see that too. So it makes me happy to know that even though introductions may have been rough and like the little road of like getting through that was a little wild, it all is the same to me coming from the large family perspective. So it's been nice to like be a part of that. And what's cool too is so I don't have any brothers. And so, you know, I have older cousins and stuff like that. So her having 3 brothers has been great, you know, for me. Like you know, inheriting 3 brothers has been cool. And my brother-in-laws they're all cool in their own different ways and stuff like that. So that's, that was another thing is like, I was really able to not only just marry my wife, but marry her family, which has been great.
Yeah, I really respect my Uncle Benny for so many reasons. The one main reason is because all his kids have kids.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you make someone, like, I want to be a parent that can teach my kids that having kids is the greatest thing in life. I don't care. I don't care what the world says, and I don't care what they want. I want them to want that.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's nothing better than family.
Yeah.
And somehow Uncle Benny has so many grandkids.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think we're at 10 now.
That's wild.
Yeah,
and they're all so young.
Yeah, so we just, the 10th was just born a couple weeks ago. And so we went, I think, from 2...
Vincent's baby? Vincent's baby?
Yeah. So he just came, little chunk. But we went from having 2 grandkids in 2018, then my son being born, and then it was just like water flowed. Like everybody, I don't know if some in the water, everyone's getting pregnant, everyone's having kids. Like it was nuts. But I think what's craziest too is like, I really appreciate seeing him as a grandfather, right? Like super tough love approach.
Yeah.
But like loves harder. You know what I mean? Like will go out of his way to make them feel that, whether that's, you know, if they did something wrong and coming back to, you know, letting them know how much, you know, that he loves them and stuff like that. Like I've seen that, and it's wild. And it's funny too, because my parents are very just loving all around. My kids can do no wrong. Right. So I really appreciate that on the other side of the coin, because, you know, my father-in-law is a no nonsense guy, you know? So it's like, if something's wrong, he's going to tell you, and you got to respect it. And I do, because it's like, you get to see that in the flesh, and there's no fake about it. It's like, it's not sugar coated. It is what it is. And so it's cool to see, you know, like him when he disciplines the kids, you know, directly, but they feel and understand that love after and know why things are happening. So it's cool. And I, you know, and then my mother-in-law is just like the sweetest thing, you know, and it's like, it's another, in my opinion, and probably going to hate that I say this too, is opposites attract, you know, like he's a very outspoken, you know, type of person. And my mother-in-law is very just calm and quiet and just so peaceful and sweet. It's crazy. It's like, I think about my parents, you know,
are your parents in the area?
My parents are in the area. My parents live 10 doors away from me, which is
that's great.
Unbelievable. Right.
That's so
and
cool.
So, you know, my dad was a biker. I don't want to call him a thug or anything like that, but you know, you know, not get in trouble.
Like a biker,
type of
not
guy,
like
not a bicycle.
Okay.
But you know, was you know, I wouldn't say not getting in trouble. I'll say that. So, and then my mom came from a very traditional, like Catholic family. And so it's just funny to see like how that is. And it allowed for me to understand why opposites attract is an okay and a real thing. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, I don't know. I feel like I really, have a better understanding of how to evaluate like older relationships. And like when I see that, you know, whether that's my father-in-law and my mother-in-law or my parents, my godparents, I think, you know, my godparents have been married. I think they got married when they turned 18, and they're now in their 60s, and it's like going on 40, I think they're 40 plus years married, and it's like, dang, it's wild, right? And it's like, that's the type of love that I like see and want to feel. In today's world, it's like people rushing into love. The divorce rates are crazy, you know, co-parenting's crazy. And so it's like, it really makes me value that, because for me, it's like, I don't care what it is. I'm not quitting on my relationship, you know, with my wife. No, like, I mean, it'd have to be something wild for me to, you know, pull myself away from that. And that's because I think that we truly understand each other, and we've stood the test of time of, you know, getting married, having kids, managing that and still staying together, because having kids is a stressful thing. I mean, yes, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But in that same sense, that's where that touch can get lost. Yeah. And so it's like, to get through, you know, those first few years, and it's like, now I feel like our marriage is thriving more than ever. You know, and we just really look forward to our time with our family, but also our time with each other, and we really kind of understand what that balance looks like. So
it's really cool to hear this, because I really hear a lot of reasons to keep my guard up about love and family and future, and a lot of reasons to not trust people, and to be skeptical, and to think twice, and to overthink. Yeah. Because it's a crazy time to be dating. I wish no one upon it, but I wish everyone should go on dates, because life is about love. Yeah. But to hear the fact that, like, you and my cousin have such a great marriage right now in these times, and have kids, and find your balance, and are financially strategic. Yeah. Like, that gives me so much hope. Yeah. Because I don't hear that.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like, again, you don't have to settle. You know, like, I feel like a lot of times people settle, and when you settle, sometimes you question what you're doing. Like, and so taking your time in that, right? And, you know, finding somebody that you have that something in common, whatever that is, right? And still potentially being an opposite of an attraction is okay, right? It's okay. And just like we talked about failing, it's okay to fail forward, right? Like, even dating, failing forward is okay, right? But as long as you mentally know that you're holding yourself to a high standard to not settle, you'll find your way. And it's today's day and age, it's like I said, it's hard to establish and drive those relationships, because there's so many things out there that force you to think otherwise. Social media, oh my God, like that social media drives a lot of people's day to day. You know, you see a certain type of clothes or shoes on Instagram and stuff like that. It's just like, oh, that's what I'm going to do. Like, I feel like social media has driven away the genuineness of people. Yeah. And so I kind of, you know, with my wife, she's not into that stuff. You know, she's not into the social media aspect, and
that's,
you know,
really refreshing.
Yeah, and and honestly, I feel like sometimes I need to do better, just, you know, based upon her. Like, she'll scroll Instagram, you know, just looking at Real Housewives stuff, or like stuff like that makes her laugh, right? Yeah. But by no means is it something that creates an influence on her, and I think that that's where today has gone, which is crazy. And it's, you know, I think that it's really important to still, like, stay true to yourself in those moments, and understand that world out there is very superficial. Yeah. And that world out there is very driven by other people that want to forcefully push you in those directions. So I think it's important to find what's genuine to you and important to you as you go through time, because there's a lot of nasty stuff on social media that I'm not a huge proponent of.
Oh yeah, I think it does more harm than good.
For sure. Yeah. And it's, I mean, just screen time in general, it's tough. I mean, my kids use their iPads, right? And there's days that I wish they didn't, you know, because growing up when I was a kid, there was not that. There was no, you know, Instagram. There was no smartphones, right? Like, I remember when I used to have to roll the dial on the phone to call somebody. Like, you know, it was very different. I remember, you know, so getting outside and, you know, getting them to play, and, you know, times are just very different. You know, being able to to get your kids out, I think is huge. I have friends that have kids that don't even touch social media at all, or don't touch iPads at all, or phones at all, or TVs at all, and I commend them. Because it's true, these things have such an influence on us, our kids, our youth, you know. So, you know, I think that it's really important to live outside of that sometimes. And I think that as I navigate, it's like, this is almost a reality check for myself too, is like, get the kids out, you know, go ride the bike at the park, let them go get into trouble. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. So it's refreshing to hear that too. And I think for you and anybody in your age, I mean, it's live your life. If it's meant to find you, it will find you, especially, you know, with all the things that you're doing. You know, you're working out, you're doing the jiu-jitsu stuff, like you have your side hustles and stuff like that. Like those like-minded individuals will find you, that, you know, maybe that the person that you're looking for. But my biggest thing is don't ever settle. Don't ever settle.
Interesting.
Yeah. Hold yourself to the highest standard. I'm sure your dad will tell you the exact same thing, right? It's like, you hold yourself to the highest standard and don't settle. Because you know your worth, you know what I mean? And so it'll find you. You're so young, you know, get out and travel. Like I said, like my grandfather told me, get out and travel, like enjoy your life, live your life, because that quality time, you know, quality years of life left is what's going to be really important for you. So
that feels good.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you this last question here about that at that time. What message would you give from the life you've lived, from the experiences you've had, for the listeners on how they can elevate their day-to-day lifestyle from the things you've learned?
Invest time in yourself. I think, you know, whether that's at a young age, I think that, you know, a lot of times we kind of collapse to our friends or to social time or to, you know, whatever that is. But I think when you can truly find yourself is when you really start to live life. Go and watch a movie by yourself. You know, go to the beach by yourself. Go on a trip by yourself. I mean, sounds kind of dangerous, right, for some people, but I think that that's important, is finding and your internal self is really good. What's going to unlock like your real abilities, because when you learn that you can do things by yourself, it's a trick. It's a, you know, it's a rolling effect in relationships, in the workplace. Like, I don't need somebody else to get something or to be able to do this or that. Like, being able to internalize and finding your internal purpose and driving towards that will, I think, and over time will help you. And it's okay to be uncomfortable. I think that being uncomfortable for people is like a weird thing. And I think that there's a lot of positives that come from that. You know, going out to eat by yourself, you know, like stuff like that. I think, you know, if you can find that time to invest in yourself, you'll definitely live a higher quality of life. Because then when the time does come that you have a family, that you have kids or whatever that is, you still have that state of mind to invest in, and you'll make the time, you know, whether that's getting up a half an hour earlier or staying up a half an hour later. Like, you find that, just don't lose touch with it.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. Guys, keep elevating, do whatever it takes to live your best life, to become the best version of yourself, and have a lovely day.